I actually would have sworn that I had seen every kind of murder you could imagine. Name a location, a victim, a motive, a suspect, a weapon. I've covered 10 of them. But never a woman killed on a conjugal visit to a husband. A husband who's serving 4 life sentences for murder. That one is a first, for me, anyway. Still, if any inmate would strangle a loving and trusting and clearly devoted spouse, David Brinson is a pretty likely candidate.
Stay tuned as we reveal everything about this case. Drop a comment and let me know what you think about this story. Welcome to our channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Like and share this video to help raise awareness and spread caution. Let's begin.
A notorious LA killer serving life in prison without the possibility of parole reportedly strangled his wife to death during a conjugal visit. 54-year-old David Brinson was convicted in the 1990 execution-style murders of 4 men in the Mid-Wilshire district. Authorities say last November, while at Mule Creek State Prison in Northern California, he told officers his 62-year-old wife Stephanie had passed out during a conjugal visit. She was declared dead at the scene.
What would make a 62-year-old grandmother marry a man serving 4 life sentences for murder? This is Stephanie Brinson, a hairstylist from Oakland, California. A woman who spent her weekends organizing charity drives, celebrating her grandchildren's birthdays, and giving back to her community. Her social media was filled with smiles, family gatherings, and moments of pure joy. She was the kind of person who lit up every room she entered. But Stephanie had a secret that worried her family deeply. She had fallen in love with a convicted killer. In November 2024, Stephanie walked into Mule Creek State Prison in California for what's called a conjugal visit, a private, unsupervised stay with her husband that can last up to 40 hours. It's a program designed to keep families connected, to maintain bonds, even when one person's behind bars. That night, Stephanie never made out alive. Around 3 a.m., prison staff received a phone call from her husband, David Brinson. He claimed Stephanie had passed out. Officers rushed to the scene. They tried everything to save her, but it was too late. At first, it seemed like a medical emergency, a tragic, unexpected loss. But when investigators looked closer, they discovered something that would shake Stephanie's family to their core. This wasn't an accident. This was murder. Before we go any further, I need to know, where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments below. This case has reached people all over the world, and I want to know where you're tuning in from. Now, here's what makes this case so disturbing. David Brinson wasn't just serving time for a minor offense. He was locked up for killing 4 men during a robbery back in 1994, for lives taken, for life sentences handed down, no chance of parole, ever. So how did this man, a quadruple murderer, end up with unsupervised access to his wife? How did the system allow this to happen? And why did anyone stop it before it was too late? Stephanie's family had been warning her for years. They saw the red flags. They knew the danger. But Stephanie believed in redemption. She believed in second chances. She thought her love and faith could change him. She was wrong. And now, her family is left with nothing but grief, anger, and a demand for answers. They want to know why California's prison system gave a violent criminal the opportunity to kill again. Stick around, because after we hear from those closest to this case, I'm going to break down exactly what happened that night, how the investigation unfolded, and what this tragedy reveals about the flaws in our prison system.
54-year-old David Brinson was convicted in the 1990 execution-style murders of 4 men in the Mid-Wilshire district. Authorities say last November, while at Mule Creek State Prison in Northern California, he told officers his 62-year-old wife Stephanie had passed out during a conjugal visit. She was declared dead at the scene. 4 months later, a coroner confirmed that she was strangled to death. The Amador County District Attorney is awaiting the prison's full report before filing charges against Brinson. Brinson has since been transferred to a state prison in Stockton.
Back in 1990, Brinson stormed into a Los Angeles apartment aiming to rob a retired tavern owner who he thought was a drug dealer. But alas, there were no drugs. There were no big wads of cash, just 4 men sitting there watching a basketball game. So David Brinson made a plan. He forced all 4 of those men to the floor and he shot them one by one in the backs of their heads, also known as execution style. David Brinson was convicted of that, and he was sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms with no possibility of parole. And at some point, while David Brinson was marking off those long days at the Mule Creek State Prison in California, he connected with Stephanie Dowles on the outside. Stephanie was known to her family as Stevie, and she was a successful salon owner, a mother of 2, and a grandmother of 6. Stevie believed that she was helping inmate Brinson find redemption, thereby making him a better man, and soon she married him. Not long after that, the state of California allowed her to be alone with him during something commonly known as the conjugal visit. Nowadays, there are only 4 states that allow conjugal visits. Bet you didn't know that. California is one of them. Inmates with good behavior can earn what are called family visits that take place in apartment-like facilities on the prison grounds. And those visits can last up to 40 hours. That also surprised me. Stevie and David, they were on a conjugal visit last November 13th when David picked up the phone and told the officers that his wife had passed out. The paramedics tried to revive her, but less than an hour later, Stevie was dead. For the next 4 months, her family was led to believe that Stevie died of natural causes. But then the coroner determined something else. Coroner determined that Stevie was strangled, apparently by the man she married and conjugally visited at the prison. While Stevie's last visit on November 13th seemed to be the final chapter for her, we are now learning some new details. David Brinson had apparently engaged in several conjugal visits with Stevie, including one in which her 3-year-old grandson was present. Let that sink in for a hot minute. He's a multiple murderer with a wife and grandson on the premises. We've also learned that Brinson attempted to take his own life back in July and failed, and yet was still allowed his visits with Stevie afterwards. As of yet, no charges, additional, I should say, have been filed against Brinson. DA says he's still waiting for a full report from the prison. But Stevie's family is heartbroken. They want justice, not to mention answers. They want answers. Why are murderers with multiple victims being allowed these family visits? Why did it take 4 months to classify Stevie's death as a homicide? And how many more times will prison officials let this kind of thing happen? Because I hope you have a drink, because this story is about to take a turn sideways. Stevie was not the only woman killed on a conjugal visit at the Mule Creek State Prison. Also last year, on July 1st, Tanya Thomas was allegedly killed by her domestic partner during her visit to the prison. A partner of hers, Anthony Curry, is a convicted carjacker and attempted murderer, and his case just went to the DA in December. I'm joined now by Stevie Dowles' daughter, Natalie Jimenez. Natalie, thank you so much for being with me, and I'm so sorry for what you and your family are going through, especially just how complicated it seems and the lack of answers. How did you first find out about this, and where do things stand today?
We found out Wednesday morning, November 13th. We got the phone call that she was found passed out and they weren't able to resuscitate her. About 2 weeks later...
Did they say anything more about it?
No.
Before we go further, did they say anything about being passed out? Did they say she'd hit her head or that she appeared to have a seizure or anything else that was informative other than just passed out?
No. When David called, he called me. He said when he woke up to go to the restroom, he found her passed out. When he went to the restroom and came back, he found her passed out. But it's like, how did you not see her passed out before you went to the restroom? You know, I also asked, what time did she go to sleep? He gave me about 2-3 different times. Every time I asked him to repeat the story to me, he probably changed it about 4 to 5 times.
So what happened? Like, why did it take 4 months for them to finally come up with strangulation. I mean, 4 months seems an awfully long time to come up with something other than passed out, something as serious as strangulation. And 4 months seems a long time to let you and your family know that.
It is. It is. 4 months. I honestly think they were trying to sweep it under. You know, it was a little short after, you know, we had help from a forensic person, and when he seen the body, he said there was evidence of abuse, so to do a private autopsy. So I really do think the prison was trying to go around it, and they found out that we were doing a private autopsy, and they just decided to tell us. But 4 months is still a lot. I think they knew sooner, and they could have told us sooner. I honestly feel like they were just trying to find a way to go around it.
What did you know about David Brinson? And were you ever concerned about Stevie going inside the prison walls to spend time alone with him in an enclosed space that's unmonitored?
I mean, you know, speaking to him, you wouldn't think too much of it. You know, it seemed like he was trying to get better. You know, he was in school. He knew I was doing treatments. I was doing chemo treatments and things like that. So he would call me, and he would do like prayers before me going to my treatments. And, you know, he would engage a lot. Well, try to engage a lot. A lot of the family wasn't a big fan of him just because he was in prison. Nobody really knew what he was in prison for. So, you know,
And
just everything coming out.
I was going to say, what do you make of the fact that July 1st, this had happened to Tanya Thomas? She was allegedly killed by her domestic partner. It's two of these in 1 year. What are your thoughts about that?
No, I feel like they should have stopped conjugal visit when it happened to Tanya. They should have definitely stopped it. And even with David trying to commit suicide, he shouldn't have no type of visitation after that attempt.
Are you and your family planning to sue the prison based on the fact that there'd been a death like this in July, and that, you know, your mom was murdered in November?
Yes, definitely. We do want justice for my mom. You know, definitely for CDRC to change their policies and be more involved with the civilians instead of the inmates. You know, just like inmates have to check in 4 times out of the night, they should at least check on civilians 2 to 3 times a day or in the night, whatever the case is. But yes, we do plan on going after the prison, after CDRC.
Did Natalie ever tell you and the family about these visits and the security? Was there a panic button? Was there some means of communication for an outsider being brought into the inside to spend upwards of 40 hours fairly unmonitored? What kind of security systems were in place? Did she ever describe it?
No, no security really in place. I mean, when she gets there, they take away all her personal belongings, meaning like her purse, her wallet, her cell phone. So she really just goes in there with the clothes that she brought. So you just go in there, and the only one that does a check-in is the inmate. They do a check-in 4 times out of the night just to make sure they're in the room.
But there's nothing for the visitor who may be in a dangerous situation to communicate to guards, I need help inside this room or in this apartment.
No, just the phone. Just the phone where the inmates have to check in. But
and
either
I have to ask you this, Natalie, sorry to interrupt, did your mom ever say that there were any red flags at all? I mean, she brought this 3-year-old, right? I think it was a 3-year-old on one of the visits. Did she ever feel there was any risk at all of having these visits?
Yeah, that was actually my son she would take. No. And it just makes you think, like, what if he was in that visit with her this time? You know, maybe he would have hurt my son as well. It just makes you think all kinds of things, but no red flags. The 2 visits that they went on, she said, and he also said that he was grateful to, have spent time with my son. And, that was kind of a connection for him of the outside world. And he was really happy when he spent those 3-4 days with my son.
Well, I am so relieved to hear that, your son is okay, and that it was on a different visit. But my God, I am so sorry, Natalie, that you've lost your mom in this way. Please keep us informed about what happens next in your process. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
So many questions about that case, about the other case, about conjugal visits in general. I'm joined now by Murd3red. He is the former director of the Napa County Jail System and a former prison warden with 28 years of inmate management experience. He's also the author of Elephant Keepers, Reflections of a Prison Warden. Thank you, Leonard, for being here. I wanted to get your reaction to the fact pattern that I just laid out and the interview I just conducted. Tell me your thoughts about this.
So thanks for having me. And it's a real troubling situation at this facility. It's highly irregular that they have conjugal visits. It's not very common. I think I heard you say that he was suicidal. That should have been a big red flag. And just that alone, they should have not allowed him to have those kinds of visits.
I keep coming back to the images that we see when we journalists go in to interview inmates. They're handcuffed and they are frequently shackled at the ankles. And that is policy. That isn't because they particularly fear that person at that moment. It is just policy. And then I think about how much freedom an inmate like this has with a family member, a grandchild even, for 40 hours straight. And this isn't computing for me. How did anybody come to the determination that this kind of one-on-one interaction would be safe when normally everyone's shackled if he or she's an inmate?
Well, I think it's a policy issue, and this is a policy that they've had in the state prison system where they allow these types of visits. It's been something that in California that's been historically done. The issue that I have is just what you said. The highest risk individuals are the people that are there for murder. In this case, this gentleman was in prison for committing 4 murders. He was in there on a sentence which would have kept him behind bars for the rest of his life. He did not have a possibility of ever getting released. That makes him one of the most dangerous, highest risk individuals. You would keep that person, if you had a doctor's visit or a psychiatrist visit, you would keep that person in chains, you would have him shackled, etc. But then to take that same person and then put him in a situation like this, where he's around a minor child and he's around a civilian, and there's no cameras in those areas because it's considered an intimate family visit. I don't know if there's a panic button or an intercom where somebody could have called for assistance. Just the fact that his background is so severe, he's there after killing 4 people and serving a life sentence without the possibility of any possibility of release. It is mind-boggling that they would think that it was safe for him to have that kind of a visit.
Leonard, can I ask you this? Clearly someone came up with these policies long ago because there had to be some benefit to them. In your experience, Is there a benefit to conjugal visits? Because only 4 states allow them now, and now we've seen, 2 horrifying deaths in just 1 year.
Well, I can tell you that the California prison system is generally one of the more violent prisons or prison systems in the country. There's always, murders, and if you just look at this particular facility, just in the last 2 years, there's been attempted murders on corrections officers. There's been murders against other inmates. This is a facility where there is a lot of violence. Now, you consider that kind of an environment, that's what these people are dealing with daily. And then you take one of those people and put him in this kind of a situation, you are not looking for good outcomes. It's a prayer and wishful thinking that I believe they've been able to keep these kinds of incidents to a low degree. But now, as you said, there was one that occurred just a few months before this incident, which should have been a big red flag. Right there, prison policy should have immediately been to stop all future visits until they could figure out what went wrong. There should have been an investigation. Outside investigators should have been brought in.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that prisons do, and generally, I work in about 30 different states doing consulting work for jails and prisons. And I find that corrections facilities and agencies are generally very risk averse. They're not the ones that say, hey, let's try out all kinds of new novel ideas and increase liability. This is silly once they know that somebody actually was killed, and then to place another person in that same situation.
I have a feeling this might be the very last of the conjugal visits at Mule Creek State Prison, and maybe other states will take a look. I have to leave it there, but I'm so thankful for your expertise. Murd3red, thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
So here we are, Stephanie Brinson, a 62-year-old grandmother who gave her time, her love, and her life to others, was strangled to death by the man she married, the man she believed could change. The Amador County coroner confirmed it. Homicide by strangulation. David Brinson killed his wife during a visit that was supposed to be safe, private, and monitored by a system that should have known better. And here's the part that's hard to swallow. As of now, the investigation is still ongoing. No new charges have been filed. David Brinson remains exactly where he was before, serving 4 life sentences with no possibility of parole. Except now, there's one more life on his hands. Stephanie's family is devastated. They're heartbroken, but they're also furious, and rightfully so. They're asking the question we should all be asking. Why was a man with her murder convictions allowed unsupervised visits with anyone? Here's how California's conjugal visit program works. The state blocks these visits for inmates on death row, those convicted of sex crimes, newly processed prisoners, or anyone currently under disciplinary action. But here's the problem. Multiple murder convictions alone don't disqualify you. Let that sink in. You can take 4 lives and still be granted private, unsupervised time with loved ones. Stephanie's family is now calling for change. They want the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation to overhaul its policies. They want real accountability. They want to make sure no other family has to bury someone because the system failed them. And honestly, they're right. Now, here's the thing. This case isn't just about policy. It's about the complicated truth of human nature. Stephanie wasn't naive. She wasn't stupid. She was compassionate. She believed in forgiveness. She thought her faith could bring out the good in someone who had done terrible things. And maybe that's the lesson here. Compassion is a beautiful quality. Faith is powerful. But neither should come at the cost of your own safety. We can believe in redemption without ignoring reality. We can support second chances without putting ourselves in harm's way. And we can demand that the systems designed to protect us actually do their job. So let me ask you this. What's your take on this case? Do you think the prison system failed Stephanie? Or do you believe this was a tragedy that couldn't have been prevented? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you think. because this conversation matters. If this story affected you, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to True Crime Station if you haven't already, because we're not just covering cases here. We're starting conversations that need to be had. We're learning from these tragedies, so they don't keep happening. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone who might be ignoring red flags in their own life, share this video with them. Sometimes, the wake-up call comes from the most unexpected places. Stephanie Brinson believed in the best of people. She gave her heart freely. She thought love could conquer all. And while her story ended in heartbreak, maybe we can honor her memory by being smarter, more cautious, and more demanding of the systems that are supposed to keep us safe. Rest in peace, Stephanie. Your life mattered. Your story matters. And we won't forget you.